Salam and peace. This is Abdul Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. We are on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and of course, a whole lot of social media. And always on our website, muslimnetwork.tv. And pretty soon we'll be on Apple TV as well. Well, today we're going to talk about something which I have always been interested in. When I think of Mali, I think of Timbuktu. When I think of Mali, I think of 700,000 handwritten manuscripts. That's the heritage of Africa, preserved in a country called Mali. And it was, it is pretty old also. It is about 800-year-old manuscripts. And there is no other place in whole Africa where that much of literary old tradition is preserved about knowledge and different things. And 150 years before Columbus mistakenly arrived in Caribbeans, sailing west to look for India, and quote unquote discovered Americas, which we are talking about nowadays. He couldn't talk with local people. They were people, so he didn't quite discover, but he didn't know how to communicate. So there were some Arabs on his ship who were able to communicate with some native people in the Caribbean. What language they communicated with, we don't know, but most likely it was Arabic language, because he has sailors who were Arabs, and there were people over there who could speak. Who were those Arabs? We don't quite know, but a Mali king, Mansa Musa, traveled west. When he was very happy, his kingdom was very high, he was one of the richest person in the world, and he decided to sail. He gave kingship to somebody else and sailed west to look for the new world. So they have knowledge of the new world, and it is recorded. And that was 700 years ago, 150, 160 years before Columbus, quote unquote, discovered. Were those people of Mansa Musa and his caravan on the ships who were the people who they discovered? We don't quite know that, but Mali is an amazing place. It has 25,000 foreign students. At that time, 700 years ago, there's more foreign students in New York State today. I Love Mali helped organize an exhibit of Mali's handwritten manuscripts in Chicago from the Mama Hadra Library. And all over it was announced in Chicago. It has stayed there for several days. But what's happening in Mali today? Why no one talks about Mali in our media? Mali is, where is Mali to begin with? To discuss all of that with us is someone from Mali, but she is nowadays in close to Atlanta, Georgia. She is more known to CNN because of her compassion towards her students. And she is Professor Ramata Sissoko. Welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Thank you very much for having me, Imam, Malik. Okay. How are you doing today?
Dr. Ramata, yes, thank you. Dr. Ramata Sissoko is Assistant Professor of Biology. Well, our producer, Sumaya, is also a student of biology and Assistant Professor of Biology at Georgia Gwinnett College. Am I pronouncing correctly?
Yes, Georgia Gwinnett College.
Okay. She holds a DVM from Kazakhstan and a PhD from the University of Georgia, Athens, Georgia. She was a postdoctoral fellow at the United States Department of Agriculture, where she conducted research in the encapsulation of Newcastle disease virus to improve vaccination success rate in rural areas. And while she's not taking care of the babies of her students, she leads change in Mali, which unites Malian in diaspora. They promote democracy in Mali, education for all, and demand good governance. Welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Thank you very much. Great to be here today.
All right. Well, nobody talks about Mali. We do. We love Mali. Mali, its history, Mali. But where is Mali? I mean, let's do 101 of Mali. Where is Mali in the world?
Well, Mali is a country now. It used to be an empire, including many parts of Africa, West Africa. Mali is located in the middle part of West Africa. It has a population of 19 million people.
19 million people. That must be one of the larger countries in the world.
Well, it's a large country. It's one of the largest country in Africa. If you look at the square area, and of course, you talk about the history a little bit, and we still keep the proudness of our history as being one of the oldest country, the oldest democracy, the oldest constitution, and the older cultural, developed, the cultural minded people in Africa. So today we have a country that's going through some crisis, and we try to.
We will talk about crisis little later. Too many crises to talk about.
I know.
About little later, but tell us this. What Mali people do, 19 million of them. And could you be in the center of the screen, please?
Yeah, Mali is a very interesting and beautiful country, both socially and culturally. In Mali, we have different regions, and every region specializes in something. If you go to the south, you'll find beautiful fruit and vegetable, very healthy diet. Like, for example, mango, tomato, all the green, organic, beautiful, great food. So Mali has, first of all, Mali is known for its food culture, And then when you go to the mid part of Mali, you will find that we have the highest rate of animal to human in Africa. We have 13 million heads of animals. So we produce a lot of meat. And the whole region in West Africa import of meat from Mali.
Oh,
yes.
So it doesn't have a whole lot of jungles, but people are into raising animals then.
Yes, people are into raising animals, which is a very old tradition. So we have a lot of villages where the number of animals surpass the number of people by 10 or even 100%. So we produce a lot of meat in Mali. Now,
Professor, watch out. I mean, animals might want to right to vote.
You know what? That's exactly as a vet, because I take human production of local animal or organic type of animal seriously, because with all the diets you see around the world, with people demanding local food production. So Mali has been known for a long time to have natural organic food production. So we are very proud of that, in a country. Now, culturally, we produce a lot of culturally local type of artwork. For example, you see the mask and sculptures in different pieces, like, for example, jewelry that have been produced in Mali. That's going to be in the mid part of Mali. And in the northern part of Mali, we produce a lot of, for example, artifacts that we've been, producing to expose the culture of Mali. So Mali is a country where we really take local production of arts and culture and socially developed idea of presenting the culture, basically. So that's why this old country is still keeping these traditions.
So, so its main people mostly raised animals and agriculture. So it's agrarian economy mostly.
Yes, it is agrarian economy because 80% of Malian population is involved in agriculture. 80%.
Okay. Okay. So how far is it from Nigeria? Everybody knows Nigeria. Where is
Yeah,
it?
it's actually close to Nigeria.
Okay.
It's close to Nigeria.
Okay. So tell us that when did French showed up in Mali? Were they invited?
You know what? That's kind of interesting because we are known. There's the word in Mandingo in Bambara called Jatigia, meaning that we are a very welcoming society. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. When you come to Mali, you are respected, you are honored, and you are welcomed beautifully. So it is interesting to know that the French people came to discover since 1892, actually. So they colonized Mali in 1892. But when you think about it, many people, many of our elderly never accepted that colonization of imposing languages or culture or quote unquote civilization. But we have our independence since 1960, but many of the French way of living are kept, like the French language is the official language and different kind of tradition, but we still keep our tradition intact because it has been an old one, like you said, 700 years ago. So we have a lot of old tradition we're keeping. So it's like a mixture of a French language and system and constitution type with grounded in Malian culture, in the Malian deep culture.
You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Malik Mujahid, and we're talking about Mali, a great country in Africa, with Dr. Ramata Sissé, and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with Professor Ramata Sissé. So the French like your cuisine, so they decided to stay there. What happened?
I guess so. I guess the food was so good. The not traditional food was so beautifully, and well, you know how the colonization went. So I guess the French people wanted to discover Mali and Africa, wanted to have resources, gold and different things. So we when we think about colonization, we always say that we don't want to stain our history with a piece of uh, things that happen in history. We always base our tradition on the old tradition, the fact that we've been there thousands of years before colonization, and the colonization happened for 72 years, where they took over the country. And today we believe that we need to put that behind us, basically.
Mm. But influence remains because the people speak. Is the I mean, Wikipedia says the national language is Arabic, but you're saying that it is French essentially.
Yeah, the official language is French, and Arabic used to be in every almost all the empire in Mali. For example, the language was Arabic because, of course, we had the Muslim invasion in Africa before, of course, French. So the country is 95% Muslim, so Arabic is, of course, part of the culture and the language. So we are a mixture of African tradition, Muslim, and French culture. It's a beautiful mixture of all the beautiful culture mixed together.
Okay. So you mentioned there are minerals. What type of minerals Mali has?
Oh, wow. We are one of the first, second, or third in history to the highest producer of gold, for example. So we produce gold. We have a lot of gold mine in Mali. And this is kind of not new, obviously, since Mansa Musa. So we produce different minerals in Mali. So, I mean, in agriculture, we produce a lot of cotton, like, we produce meat. And this is for a long time. This is part of our old tradition.
So who controls the minerals? I mean, Central African Republic, which is, I think, further south, southeast of Mali, I think. Almost a complete genocide took place there. I mean, my friend Desmond Tutu, Bishop Desmond Tutu, is the only one who said a genocide might take place, and that was the time almost all Muslims were wiped out from that area. Because there was some government called coalition government, which has Muslims and Christian part of it, and so there was a rebellion against that. Whatever is the history, at that time, French went to United Nations, and they got approval from the United Nations to bring peace, quote unquote, to Central African Republic. And Imam, I spoke over the telephone when the genocide was beginning, and he told me that, I said, what is the one thing which you want? And he said, I want French to leave the area. And according to United Nations ambassador, U.S. ambassador to United Nations, Cynthia Powers, she is also a professor. She have written a book on genocide, actually. So she, in United Nations, after a year, told us that other than two, all 500 mosques were destroyed over there. So that was the reason Imam was saying that they need to be out. So we welcome them as a peacemaker. But then they come into the house, disarm Muslim from little home-based knife or something, and immediately after that, armed Christian militia comes and start killing men and taking, that's quote unquote, women and our animals away. So I started researching, and I discovered that France actually controls, one company in France controls all the underground water of Central African Republic, and they have monopoly on all the uranium mining in Central African Republic, because it's an old French country, and they came there to bring peace with only 300 soldiers initially. And Central African Republic is the size of France. Can you control France, quote unquote, a civilized country with 200 police officers? So it was essentially to reoccupy under the disguise of calling it, Muslims have taken over the country and all that. So I want to understand Mali, What control on the resources of Mali French
Mhm.
corporations and these people still have?
Well, Doctor, um, when you were talking about Central Africa, if you hadn't talked about the Central African country, anybody who would have here, you would have thought that you're talking about Mali.
Really?
I know. Yes. It is kind of interesting and weird. Now, when people talk about politics, I always tell them that I am not a politician, I'm a biologist. And I did my research in neuroscience, in neurobiology. I did research in learning and memory, studying the brain. So I believe in the power of the human brain. When you take a society, a population, and subject them, impose on them a language they don't speak, and ask them to study in that language. Just imagine somebody coming to America or going to India or even France or Germany and go to a kindergarten country, a class, a kindergarten class, and telling the kids, today we'll learn about something in a language they've never heard before. Imagine how their brain processes the information and function. You will be talking to a wall. So the first thing as a biologist that I denounce is after the colonization of the country, the French language was literally imposed as the language in which people need to study, while there are languages that people speak in the country that in which they could understand message. So coming to colonize Mali and leaving the country and leaving the language alone was a problem. The second thing is, as a biologist, the first thing you want to do for your body is an immune defense. In order for you to be healthy every day, you have to have blood cells, white blood cells that fight germs coming to your body. It's a defense. A country whose defense is guaranteed by another country is a sick country. Because if you cannot protect yourself, you cannot live up to your own dream. So we got two problems: the French as the official language, and the French army has a guarantor of peace and security in Mali.
Really?
Yes.
Even now?
Even today, because the government signed contract with the French army for it to be able in the country, basically to be able to do what they want and not to be able to be even prosecuted if they commit a crime. So only the French government can prosecute French soldier who would commit crime on the soil of Mali. So to me, the independence that was taken in 1960, it was just in the book. In reality, speaking the language and then having the army are suffice to call Mali a recolonized country. That is why in the central part of Mali, the northern part of Mali, we have every type of human abuse you can imagine. The villages are burned every day by so-called unidentified terrorists that can come at night, burn the village, kill people, kill animals, and leave in the morning, and then telling the people, we don't know who they are, where they come from.
Oh
This
no.
is,
Right now, this is happening?
yes, right now, this is happening. A couple of weeks ago, we had 36 innocent civilians who got killed, burned in the village. And we have soldiers who got killed by, until today, unidentified terrorists. while the
So
French army
French
is present.
was supposed to protect. So do they have police there who does that? And
There's a French army there. The French army is there, and their job is to protect the population. And since their presence in Mali, we have more crime than before they came.
so it's just like Central African Republic, where there
Exactly
were
like
not
Central
as
Africa.
many crime until they landed there.
Exactly. The same case, we are living the same case as Central Africa.
How many French army personnel are there?
Actually, I don't even know the numbers. We can search it, but we have French army. The last time I remember, there were like 20,000. I mean, think about it. The number of French army or international army, we call them French because, I mean, the French army is commanding them. So I actually met some of them when I went to Mali a couple of years ago. When I went to Gao, where I'm from, I went to the center and talked to people. I'm like, who are these people? Of course, I saw some people from even Pakistan, from Bangladesh, from different countries, young soldier, and sometimes they don't even know why they're there. And this is happening when the unemployment rate for the youth is the highest. Well, I mean, we could train those people to defend themselves, but
Yes.
bringing people from outside to protect the local people, they don't speak the language, they don't understand the culture, while we have young people sitting in the street drinking tea, not having a job. And I don't understand. I mean, as a biologist, I'm like, how come you have a vaccine against a disease when you can produce your own white blood cells? It's the same thing. When you can produce something, why are you going to inject something in your body that you have already? Why are you going to bring soldiers to Mali to protect the Malians against Malians when you have young people who are not working, who are unemployed, who have degree, graduated with the highest degree, don't have jobs? So it doesn't make any sense to us.
Of course, it doesn't make any sense to me either. So what happened to the Mali's police and Mali's army?
Now, they're talking about Mali army not being trained enough, not being specialized enough. Now, we have a system that was inherited from a French system where governance and human, happiness or human well-being are not going hand in hand. When the governance or the system is not benefiting the people. When you think about it, the whole reason why you run the country is to make people eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, have peace and security, just basic things in life.
Peace and security is
Yeah, I mean, security
function of
should
the
be
government.
exactly. Security should be number one. So it has to be the main reason why you have a government. But when you have a government who cannot provide basic peace and security, who has to rely on another country with the soldier, telling you that your soldiers are not trained enough, telling you your soldiers are not equipped enough. I mean, that to us, I talk to a lot of people who are specialized in military. They don't understand either, because I don't understand why. It doesn't make any sense.
And is there any effort for telling them? So if there are soldiers led by France of different countries, it means the United Nations probably have something to do that. But the United Nations have many great people. Is there any communication with them that if you think the army and police is not trained, what about strengthening the country's institution of those people who know their language? They know how to handle and bring peace. I mean, peace will come because the people want peace. Nobody can impose that peace. I mean, actually, many of these people, I mean, the whole history of slave trade from Africa to here, history tells us that they will, French and Germans and British and American, not German, Americans will provide arms to different tribes so they can fight with each other and sell slaves to them. And that's how they will collect. And once they have taken a ship and there are no more ships, they will stop providing arms, so peace will come in. So French, if they have some type of economic interest and these type of things, It is in their interest for conflict to continue instead of country becoming a stronger country.
You know what? This is the feeling and this is the reality, because if you cannot think for them for yourself, every time I talk about politics, I talk as a biologist because that's how I see it. I see politics as a human body, how human body function. So if you cannot even think for yourself, somebody has to come from another country telling you what kind of army you should have, how you train them. It is going to be hard for you to even have a way of getting out of the system. And if somebody's using you, somebody's used to coming to your country, getting your gold, getting your natural resources, it'll be hard for them to leave because it's a human nature. When you can exploit people, you will keep exploiting them. Use people. That's why morale comes in place. And that morality, if it doesn't exist, because sometimes the politics and government and morality cannot go hands on hand, they will continue doing it. Somebody got to speak up. Somebody got to fight. Somebody got to say something. That's why you can be a professor involved in politics, because it doesn't make sense and curiosity takes you there.
Let's talk a little more about that after we take this break. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with Professor Ramata Sissé about Mali, and she's bringing her strength of neuropsychology there. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with Professor Ramata Sissé. Professor, you mentioned the French with probably the UN mandate are sitting there, and there are crimes have gone up instead of going down, and the internal institution to establish peace, police and army, are told that they are not trained and nobody is training them, while there are a whole lot of human resources sitting sipping tea because they have nothing else to do. So tell us what Malian are trying to do about that. I mean, people like you, who you're a leader of a movement to bring strengthen Mali through peace and democracy. What are the three things which you are trying to achieve?
Well, first of all, curiosity brought me to this, because I always wonder how come with all these resources, water, land, people, beautiful weather, rain, the sun, the moon, everything is in Mali, like heaven. And looking at the data, Mali is ranked as the seventh poorest country on earth.
Seventh poorest country?
Yes. And the seventh least developed country in the world.
With the heritage of Mansa Musa, with the heritage of having the largest number of handwritten manuscripts from religion to science. So that's the only country in Africa, right? I don't know many countries. So America doesn't have 700,000 manuscripts written here, say, 700 years ago.
Exactly. So it's kind of mind-boggling to even think about the history of this country, the richness of this country, the natural resource of this country, and the ranking and the population, the living condition. We have the highest mortality rate in Mali. We have the lowest life expectancy, one of the lowest in the world. So these are numbers that, looking at the country and look at the data, as a scientist, you cannot stop wondering and researching and finding why the country is not being able to develop, why it's not getting itself out of poverty, why kids are dying. We have the highest children mortality rate under 5 years old, 5 years. So it is a question we ask ourselves every day. So doing those research, it takes you to different things. Is it the climate? Is it the governance? Is it the politics? Is it the people? So sometimes you wonder, and we been doing so many different research about finding the reason why, right? So now, as a scientist, you cannot pinpoint exactly, but one thing we all look at is the governance, how the resources are used, how the system is putting in place. What are people studying in? What do they study? How do they plan, for example, job or different things in the country? So those research and those things take us to say we probably need just a good vision, a good planning, a good program for this country.
So how the group which you lead, Change in Mali, they do more research, as you mentioned, or they have certain list of demands? Do they educate America? Do they lobby the U.S. government? What does this Change in Mali does?
First of all, Change in Mali is a movement, an organization that brought Malian together from the diaspora who wanted to be involved in educating people about the situation. Because sometimes you wonder, with all these, people are still living in the condition. Do they understand? Do they see the problem? So what we do first is sponsoring children, because we realize that the basic thing, human right, after living, is just basic right to education. And we have one of the lowest literacy rate in Africa.
How did that happen? I mean, here you had the highest level of educated population for centuries.
Mhm.
Produce a major king, produce a lot of wealth, 25,000 plus foreign students studying in Mali, not in New York, who didn't even exist with that name at that time. How all of that, do you think it could all be attributed to French, who changed the language of the people they study, so their literary tradition died out?
Mhm.
Or there were some intentional issues of this nature? Of course, that requires a whole lot of research, but so your main emphasis is education. So does the piece in Mali, what is the name of the entity? I missed that.
Change of Mali.
Change in Mali, do they sponsor seminars about education in Mali? Do they actually organize colleges and universities there? Is there any Mali institution which has affiliation with the United States universities? How you go about doing that?
Actually, what we do, we talk to youth about their involvement in governance, in politics in Mali. We realize that the reason why the system is not functioning is because people who should be involved are not involved. Because many young people in Mali take politics as something negative, because politicians have been probably lying to them, so they kind of distrust the
Well, Professor, welcome to America. In America, they survey what are the most liked profession or institution, and Congress and politicians and media all at the bottom of the 10 people. And your profession of being a doctor, physician and professor is among the highest rated one in America also. So this is common.
Yeah, that's why you can understand if somebody in the medical field get involved in politics, it is kind of weird sometimes how you don't see how people don't understand that telling the truth and being real is easier and faster to solve problems. You don't have to lie, you have to be truthful. So that's why I'm a very bad politician, obviously, because I'm looking for truth and logic, which is not in politics. But what we're trying to do, we're trying to bring to the ground the way of thinking to resolve basic problems. Now, in Mali, a lot of people, even not young people, even older people who are intellectually advanced, never took governance seriously because they didn't believe in it. We're trying to bring real people, honest people, dedicated people to bring to politics, to take it as a mean to solve problems, not to be coming to TV to read speech, or just to talk. So some basic thing on the ground. For example, sponsoring.
This sister, if you apologize for calling you sister, I love you, and I meant to say professor, but I keep calling people I love sisters. One
That's
of the
fine.
things I'd like you to pass here, why people were not interested in, say, civil service or police service in army. I want to understand that. Why? Because in Central African Republic, when I started seeing what is going on, I noted that Muslims will not enter bureaucracy, will not enter the army. They will not go to a higher academic institution, although they're huge, large number of them are educated, literate, through Islamic system, and they were all in business. So trade and business were essentially in the hand of these people, and politics and the government was left over to other people who were corrupt. And when they tried to change in coalition with some good, well-minded Christians, that's where the French started crying, "Oh, Muslims are taking over," and blah blah blah, and the genocide began there. What is it? Why these people don't want to be part of the government and the police and the army? It's their country, right?
Yeah, you know what? I tie this to the way information is delivered. When Mali was colonized, of course, all the government were French people speaking French to people, abusing people. So, as a biologist, it became a mental state to see the government as the enemy of the people because that's what it used to be. It used to be a government, a French government, exploit people who came to abuse people to take resources. So that became part of it because your brain, has cells, neurons. They communicate. They get interaction between them. So you can train mentally somebody to see something in a negative way if for decades that society has been abused by the type of government.
So this is like the United States, where African American experience of democracy in America is not like the white folks, and their distrust of the institution is also very high. Actually, in the mosque where I give sermons and pray, there are some of my African American friends. They don't even vote. They say, "Oh, forget about these people."
Exactly. Because they lost trust in the system. It's the same thing in Mali. If you find somebody in Mali who is very honest, hardworking, will tell you, no, I'm not involved. That has to change, right? Many people thought that you let them run their thing, let them do it because the system was not meant for them. The system was not for their benefit. Now, what we're trying to do in a change in Mali, if this movement, is to re-educate people, to redirect their brain to see the government as a entity that is there to bring some good to people. In order for that to happen, we have to have good people, honest people, hardworking people, people who know what they're doing, to be involved in politics to bring physical solution to real problems. Instead of having a system that is so fake and so corrupt that does not bring anything but exploiting, having people in government who are making thousands, million of money while the poor people are being exploited, which used to be the system. But today, we see that a lot of young Malians are finding that they can be part of the process. They can be part of the system.
So in a way, you're talking about, by people, for people. You sound like you're going to run for the presidency of Mali.
Well, I tell people that I want to make sure that I inspire young people to feel like anybody that I train can feel like they can be president. So my job as a professor is to make more of myself, because I believe I can run the country. I believe in myself. So I want to make sure that I inspire them to believe in themselves. My goal is to make sure every member of the movement feels like he or she has the ability, the moral ability, the intellectual ability, the political power, the will, the leadership to become the president. So it's not just.
Is that
Yes.
the reason you're taking your students' babies and tying to your back while teaching?
Well, I do that because I believe in education and I believe in every student in my class. Every single student who enters my class, I tell them that I teach you biology, but the first thing I want to show you is leadership, because I believe in leadership. I believe in a humankind being able to see a problem and bring a physical solution to it. So if a student comes and say, I need this, I do everything I can to accommodate the student, because I want my student to learn. I want them to focus on the class. So if it's the baby or anything else, I will do for them. My goal is for them to focus on the class.
But as we're concluding, I like a little bit more reflection. How in the world you can keep the baby for 3 hours on your back? Did you sit down? Did you drink some water? I mean, it does take extra energy to move with a baby on your back, right?
You know what? I prepare myself mentally, because the student called me a night before and she said she doesn't have a babysitter. And she said, Dr. Cissé, I want to bring my baby because I don't have a babysitter. And we have an exam coming. And if she doesn't pass that exam, she can't pass the class. It's like a critical exam. I told her, I said, bring the baby, we'll figure it out. So I didn't know what I was going to do, honestly. I didn't think about putting the baby on my back. I just thought about so many things. I said, maybe another professor will help me or stuff. So when she brought the baby, I saw her holding the baby in the back of the class. And I said, the baby was moving a lot, so she couldn't take note. So when I saw it 5 minutes, I said, you know what? I can hold this baby on my back for her. So of course I didn't have anything to tie the baby. So I took my lab coat, and I had a clean lab coat in the back. I said, you know what? I can figure. So when I put the baby, I asked her, I said, is it okay to put the baby on my back? She's like, what? What you mean? Because she didn't understand what the baby on the back mean. I said, I just tied the baby. And then she said, of course, how my students trust me. So when I put the baby on my back, I just tied the baby. Actually, after 10 minutes, the baby started sleeping on my back while I was teaching. So it was easy. He was snoring peacefully.
So for most of your class, probably tying babies in the back was something new. I mean, it's purely African, I think. I have not seen people tying babies in the back anywhere but in Africa. Is that correct, or people do this in other cultures also?
You know what? It's something very common in Africa to hold the baby on your back, and
keep working.
Pardon me?
And keep working while you do that, right?
Yeah, and keep working. And the babies feel the temperature. And actually, while I was teaching, when I was writing stuff, he was kind of tickling me on my side because he has a little finger, it was kind of fun. And, he was sleeping. And my student, like, Dr. C said he's sleeping, And I was like, yeah, okay, all right. So they're asking me a question about if the baby can hear me, so I was telling them about the baby brain cells and, the information is going to his brain. One day he'll think about it and be like, I heard this before. And I kind of feel this before. So, so it was kind of beautiful.
Before we go, I mean, we just have a half a minute. Tell me, in America, people know more about Mansa Musa than they know about Mali. And because there are children's books and Muslims know about it and African Americans learn about that, and there may be some movies or something like that. Tell me, do students in Mali know as much about Mansa Musa as African American and Muslims in America know about him?
Yes, we talk about, since Mali is an old country, honestly, we talk about the history of the country. We don't even talk about colonization a lot because we existed thousands of years before French people came. So we talk about Mansa Musa, we talk about all our great king and queens, we talk about it all the time. That is why you see in Mali today, yeah, there is a movement called the movement of F5, the movement of June 5th, that is demanding change in Mali today, actually demanding the president to resign because the president failed to deliver to his campaign promises. The reason why you see this fight taking socially is because Malians believe in democracy. Malians believe in the governance of people by people. So all these things happen because of the cultural background of Malian. Because we know we had kings and queens in the past who really believed in themselves, who fought for the right of people and peace in the country. So we don't take this as something new. We know democracy. We believe in democracy. We believe in peace and security. And everybody got together to form a great movement called the M5 movement, which we are a member of in this country, to demand change, to demand anybody's governance who is not going with the people, with the will of people, to leave the power, to let somebody else come to take over so that people can have their own will, their own decision being taken on top of the country to change the system, to change, to bring peace.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much.
Ramata Sissé, a compassionate professor who takes care of students and students' babies while striving for peace, development, and governance in Mali, a country with a great heritage, and we pray with a great future as well. This is
Thank
Imam
you.
Malik Mujahid, and this was a conversation with Professor Ramata Sissé. And you're watching Muslim Network TV, and continue to do so. And go on muslimnetwork.tv to learn more about why in the world no television in America brings the conversation which are so critical, but the Muslim Network TV. Our producer today is Sumaya Haider, Zehra Nadeem, and Connor Mays also support as producers. Peace. Salam.